modern Europe under the form of the rose. The rose and the lotus are Ionic emblems, signifying primarily the maternal creative mystery, while the Easter lily is considered to be phallic. The Brahmin and Egyptian initiates, who undoubtedly understood the secret systems of spiritual culture whereby the latent centers of cosmic energy in man may be stimulated, employed the lotus blossoms to represent the spinning vortices of spiritual energy located at various points along the spinal column and called chakras, or whirling wheels, by the Hindus. 7 of these chakras are of prime importance and have their individual correspondences in the nerve ganglia and plexuses. According to the secret schools, the sacral ganglion is called the 4-petaled lotus, the prostatic plexus, the 6-petaled lotus, the epigastric plexus and navel, the 10-petaled lotus, the cardiac plexus, the 12-petaled lotus, the pharyngeal plexus, the 16-petaled locus, the cavernous plexus, the 2-petaled lotus, and the pineal gland or adjacent unknown center, the 1000-petaled locus. The color, size, and number of petals upon the lotus are the keys to its symbolic import. A hint concerning the unfoldment of spiritual understanding according to the secret science of the mysteries is found in the story of Aaron's rod that budded, and also in Wagner's great opera, Tannhäuser, where the budding staff of the Pope signifies the unfolding blossoms upon the sacred rod of the mysteries, the spinal column. Insert. The tree of the Knights of the Round Table. This remarkable example of the use of the tree in symbolism is from the Château de Pierrefonds in the little town of Pierrefonds, northern France. The 8 side branches end in conventional cup-like flowers, from each of which rises the body of a knight carrying in his hand a ribbon bearing his name. The central stem is surmounted by a larger flower, from which emerges the body of King Arthur himself. The tree is a favorite motif in heraldry. The one trunk with its multitude of branches caused the tree to be frequently used in diagramming family lineage, from which practice has arisen the custom of terming such tables family trees. Continued. The Rosicrucians used a garland of roses to signify the same spiritual vortices, which are referred to in the Bible as the 7 lamps of the candlestick and the 7 churches of Asia. In the 1642 edition of Sir Francis Bacon's History of Henry VII is a frontispiece showing Lord Bacon with Rosicrucian roses for shoe buckles. In the Hindu system of philosophy, each petal of the lotus bears a certain symbol which gives an added clue to the meaning of the flower. The Orientals also used the lotus plant to signify the growth of man through the 3 periods of human consciousness, ignorance, endeavor, and understanding. As the lotus exists in 3 elements earth, water, and air, so man lives in 3 worlds, material, intellectual, and spiritual. As the plant, with its roots in the mud and the slime, grows upward through the water and finally blossoms forth in the light and air, so the spiritual growth of man is upward from the darkness of base action and desire into the light of truth and understanding, the water serving as a symbol of the ever-changing world of illusion through which the soul must pass in its struggle to reach the state of spiritual illumination. The rose and its Eastern equivalent, the lotus, like all beautiful flowers, represent spiritual unfoldment and attainment. Hence, the Eastern deities are often shown seated upon the open petals of the lotus blossoms. The lotus was also a universal motif in Egyptian art and architecture. The roofs of many temples were upheld by lotus columns, signifying the eternal wisdom. And the lotus-heated scepter, symbolic of self-unfoldment and divine prerogative, was often carried in religious processions. When the flower had 9 petals, it was symbolic of man. When 12, of the universe and the gods. When 7, of the planets and the law. When 5, of the senses and the mysteries. And when 3, of the chief deities and the worlds. The heraldic rose of the Middle Ages generally has either 5 or 10 petals, thereby showing its relationship to the spiritual mystery of man through the Pythagorean pentad and decad. Cultus arbum. The worship of trees as proxies of divinity was prevalent throughout the ancient world. Temples were often built in the heart of sacred groves, and nocturnal ceremonials were conducted under the wide-spreading branches of great trees, fantastically decorated and festooned in honor of their patron deities. In many instances the trees themselves were believed to possess the attributes of divine power and intelligence, and therefore supplications were often addressed to them. The beauty, dignity, massiveness, and strength of oaks, elms, and cedars led to their adoption as symbols of power, integrity, permanence, virility, and divine protection. Several ancient peoples, notably the Hindus and Scandinavians, regarded the macrocosm, or grand universe, as a divine tree growing from a single seed sown in space. The Greeks, Persians, Chaldeans, and Japanese have legends describing the axle tree upon which the earth revolves. Kapila declares the universe to be the eternal tree, Brahma, which springs from an imperceptible and intangible seed, the material monad. The medieval Kabbalists represented creation as a tree with its roots in the reality of spirit and its branches in the illusion of tangible existence. The Sephirotic tree of the Kabbalah was therefore inverted, with its roots in heaven and its branches upon the earth. Madame Blavatsky notes that the Great Pyramid was considered to be a symbol of this inverted tree, with its root at the apex of the pyramid and its branches diverging in four streams towards the base. The Scandinavian world tree, Yggdrasil, supports on its branches 9 spheres or worlds, which the Egyptians symbolized by the 9 stamens of the Persea or avocado. All of these are enclosed within the mysterious 10th sphere or cosmic egg, the definitionless cipher of the mysteries. The Kabbalistic tree of the Jews also consists of 9 branches, or worlds, emanating from the first cause or crown, which surrounds its emanations as the shell surrounds the egg. The single source of life and the endless diversity of its expression has a perfect analogy in the structure of the tree. The trunk represents the single origin of all diversity. The roots, deeply embedded in the dark earth, are symbolic of divine nutriment. And its multiplicity of branches spreading from the central trunk represent the infinity of universal effects dependent upon a single cause. The tree has also been accepted as symbolic of the microcosm, that is, man. According to the esoteric doctrine, man first exists potentially within the body of the world tree and later blossoms forth into objective manifestation upon its branches. According to an early Greek mystery myth, the god Zeus fabricated the third race of men from ash trees. The serpent so often shown wound around the trunk of the tree usually signifies the mind, the power of thought, and is the eternal tempter or urge which leads all rational creatures to the ultimate discovery of reality and thus overthrows the rule of the gods. The serpent hidden in the foliage of the universal tree represents the cosmic mind. And in the human tree, the individualized intellect. The concept that all life originates from seeds caused grain and various plants to be accepted as emblematic of the human spermatozoon, and the tree was therefore symbolic of organized life unfolding from its primitive germ. The growth of the universe from its primitive seed may be likened to the growth of the mighty oak from the tiny acorn. While the tree is apparently much greater than its own source, nevertheless that source contains potentially every branch, twig, and leaf which will later be objectively unfolded by the processes of growth. Man's veneration for trees as symbols of the abstract qualities of wisdom and integrity also led him to designate as trees those individuals who possess these divine qualities to an apparently superhuman degree. Highly illumined philosophers and priests were therefore often referred to as trees or tree men, for example, the Druids, whose name, according to one interpretation, signifies the men of the oak trees, or the initiates of certain Syrian mysteries who were called cedars. In fact, it is far more credible and probable that the famous cedars of Lebanon, cut down for the building of King Solomon's temple, were really illumined, initiated sages. The mystic knows that the true supports of God's glorious house were not the logs subject to decay but the immortal and imperishable intellects of the tree hierophants. Trees are repeatedly mentioned in the Old and New Testaments, and in the scriptures of various pagan nations. The tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil mentioned in Genesis, the burning bush in which the angel appeared to Moses, the famous vine and fig tree of the New Testament, the grove of olives in the Garden of Gethsemane where Jesus went to pray, and the miraculous tree of Revelation, which bore 12 manners of fruit and whose leaves were for the healing of the nations, all bear witness to the esteem in which trees were held by the scribes of Holy Writ. Buddha received his illumination while under the Bodhi tree, near Madras in India, and several of the Eastern gods are pictured sitting in meditation beneath the spreading branches of mighty trees. Many of the great sages and saviors carried wands, rods, or staves cut from the wood of sacred trees, as the rods of Moses and Aaron. Gunnar, the spear of Odin,